Hello everybody, my name is Kai Werner and I work as Technology Evangelist for TIBCO. Today I want to show you how to build a custom Flogo connector. This is an open source project for IoT integration. And I will use Apache Kafka as example and will show you how you build a custom connector to send messages to Apache Kafka brokers. So this is not an introduction to the IoT project Flogo. If you want to see more about that, please go to flogo.io, and we also have a lot of videos and slides and more information on our community website. Here in this case, I really want to show you how to build a custom connector with some Go programming language code. And first, the key takeaways. So first, it is very easy, fast and lightweight to build new Flogo connectors, as I will show you today. And it can be done without much experience in Go. So that's also very important because Go is a very simple and intuitive language. I did not have experience with that before and I really did it learning by doing. Of course, if you want to then deploy to enterprise scale, you should be a little bit more experienced to build the advanced connectors. And it's best done by using other Flogo connectors and unit tests. I will show you how you can reuse them as template to build your new connectors. And the final takeaway is that, of course, we would encourage you to contribute to the Flogo open source community. So Flogo completely is open source and therefore it would be great if you can also contribute. But of course, this is not a must, so you can also keep your code for yourself, of course. Let's take a short look at the Flogo concepts so that you are aware of what I want to show you. Flogo typically has applications. So this is a complete application with a flow. And this is an integration flow where you connect different IoT systems. And in this case, we see one flow, and a flow has a trigger which starts the new process. And we have activities where you can connect to, for example, you can in this case connect to a REST interface, or you can send a message to an MQTT broker, or as I will do, I will build a new activity so that you can also send messages to an Apache Kafka broker which is not available yet. And then I will contribute that back to the Flogo community. That's basically what I want to show you, how to build an activity, but the same is then also true for building triggers, so that works exactly the same way. Flogo, as I mentioned, is open source under the very permissive BSD license, so you can do whatever you want with the code and change it, enhance it, and so on. And it's all on GitHub, as you can see. And Flogo right now has 4 projects, and the one we think about most now is the Flogo Contrib project, because this has the activities and triggers, and this is probably what most people which are not part of the main Flogo team will build their own extensions first, for example, for connectors or for own logic, like doing new routings or filterings or so. And therefore, this is also the project I will show you in more detail. And I already installed that to my Go path and to my Go workspace. So here's the command how you do that. All the projects on GitHub, and you can install them with one command to your Go workspace. In this example, I want to use Apache Kafka, which is a distributed streaming platform. I here copy and paste a few information from the website of Apache Kafka. In the end, it's an open source framework for large-scale messaging, for doing publish and subscribe, for processing streams of data, and for storing them on a distributed replicated cluster. The same way you can build other connectors for any kind of technology, so not just for these kind of brokers or messaging technologies, but for anything else, also for very IoT specific technologies. So here are the steps I did to develop a custom connector, and I will also show that to you in a live demo in a minute. But let's first go through the steps. First, you have to get access to a new technology, of course. So in this case, I want to integrate with Apache Kafka, so I had to set up my local broker, or of course you can use any cloud service or other remote connection if you have one already for your technology which you want to integrate to. And then, as Flogo, most of it is based on Go programming language, you have to find a Go API. For Kafka, there are several available. I choose the one from OptioPay because it simply was very simple to use and it was fine for me. In other use cases, there might be better ones, but in the end, to develop your Flogo Kafka adapter, you need a Golang API for Kafka. And then, of course, you have to install it. And first, of best case, you run a Hello World example just with this API. And after that connection works to your broker, then you can put that into the Flogo code. So as next step, you duplicate an existing Flogo activity. And the same is also true for triggers, of course. And that's the best way to get started. So you simply use an existing activity as template, and then here you can enhance it and replace code and so on until you have a working example. And the same is also true for the unit tests. So each activity has unit tests, and here you again can use them and adapt them and change them until this test works for your new adapter. In this case, I'm building it up around Kafka. And then you are actually already done, but you can also, of course, use the Flogo Web UI and also edit here. So in our projects, I always also configure the configuration for the Web UI so that you can use the connectors there too. I will show that to you in a minute, and I will also show you how you can install new connectors in the Web UI then. And finally, again, this is optional, but it would be great, and we would encourage you that you contribute your code back to the Flogo community via a GitHub pull request in our project, or simply by contacting us via email or Slack also. So this was the theory. Now I want to show you how I developed a Kafka connector. Let's go through the different steps. The first one is really to set up a Kafka broker. So I installed a local one. Here you see I already started it. So this is really a basic configuration locally where I have running Zookeeper and a Kafka broker. And in the same way, of course, you could access a cloud service or any other Kafka connector you have in your enterprise or project already. This is the first step so that you can begin. And then the second step is to get a Kafka library. I did some research here, and for Kafka there are many clients and APIs available. For Go, even there you have 5 or 6 different libraries available. I did only a very short research, and I took the one from OptioPay because this one was pretty simple and easy to use, and I just wanted to getting started. Other ones might have better performance or have other advantages like more functionality. So you might have to evaluate that, of course, for your technology by yourself. I here use the OptioPay one, which is also like most of the projects on GitHub. And the good thing here is also it also has a very nice and simple example how you can get started with some Golang code. And as I said, even if you did not use Go before, you can simply get started with that. So that's pretty easy. So what I did, I actually really used this example for getting started with Apache Kafka and Go. Nothing with Flogo right now, so just this. And for that, I go to my IDE. I here use Light IDE, which is a very simple and intuitive IDE which you can use for Go. But of course, you can use any kind of text editor or IDE which you want to use for programming with Go. And here you see I have imported this example from the GitHub project, which also uses this OptioPay Kafka API. And then you have to adapt a few things, like you have to set your topic which you want to use in your project. I here use my messages. And then you also have to say what is the local host, the broker you set up, or if you have a remote broker, what's the address. And then you can actually already compile and run this. So in Go, you typically install this in your Go path and workspace. And therefore, here first we see the source code of that stuff. And for that, I also have here the Kafka application. This is the example here. And if you put Go install on the terminal, it installs it. So you have the binary. And then you can execute this Go binary here. And then you can really send messages to Kafka and consume them. And that's the first thing I will do. So first I will start 2 other services here. This is a Kafka consumer and a producer service. This is this came with the Apache Kafka installation to test your services. And here you see I have the producer to my topic, my messages, and I also have a consumer. And as here some messages are persistent, here it already consumes some messages already, which I tested before starting this video recording. And now I can also send messages here, and then you see here the consumer also on the right side receives the message. Now I start my Kafka application again. This is the application I compiled and installed from my Go code. And this again has nothing to do with Flogo yet. I start this Kafka application, and here now I can also send messages. So let's say 1, 2, 3. And you see this Kafka application is both a producer and consumer, so it received a message, and also my other Kafka consumer received a message. Okay, so if I do another producing here, then also both these consumers consume the messages. So this is the step where now we have Go Kafka working. So my Go code can connect to Kafka and send and consume messages. And now we can actually start with our Flogo project. So let's go back to the IDE. And what I did here, I imported or installed all the open source code for Flogo, where, as I said in the beginning, the Flogo contrib is the most interesting one for contribution. So here you can add new activities or new triggers or any other kind of logic. And this is in the end what I installed here. That's the projects which are also, as I said, under a very permissive BSD license on GitHub. And that's not it, but that's my that's already my implementation of my connector. And so here now, let's go into that. How did I do that? Really, I used another connector as template. For example, you can simply copy and paste this complete project and use it as template. And this way you will quickly learn also about the Flogo concept. So how you typically develop applications and code here. What are the typical structs and how metadata is used with the pointer system in Flogo. So if you spend a few it's really more or less about minutes, so I spent maybe 2 or 3 hours to develop this whole Kafka connector, so it's really easy to getting started. Of course, then you need to learn more about Go if you want to do more enterprise scale and more powerful stuff. But here it's pretty easy. I copied this project here and created my own one on GitHub. So here now you see under my container, I see the Flogo project. And here I simply have now created a new Kafka connector. In that, you have then to adapt your changes. So for example, the activity. This is the core Go code for your activity. And here now you see I simply have added something, so changed it. So here now I do not import anymore the Twilio API, but for example the Kafka client, which I showed you before. And then I have other constants, of course, because here now I'm interested in topics and messages. Right now, the address is still hard-coded here, so this is the next step. Of course, you also have to make this flexible so that you can configure that one. And then most of the other things are very similar to the template, to the Twilio example. You just have now to add here your business logic for Kafka, like creating a topic input and then doing some broker connection and so on. And here really I use the stuff which I used in my Kafka application before from the Hello World example. And of course you have to try it out a little bit, but if you have some programming experience in any kind of language like Java or C# or C or JavaScript, then it's pretty easy to get started. And this is also type safe, so you can compile it and get errors thrown, so it's really easy to learn. And you also quickly learn about pretty cool new features of Go, in contrary to other languages like Java. Like here, the defer keyword, where you can simply say, close my broker connection when you do not need it anymore. So in Go, you do this right after creating the connection, and not, for example, like in Java, where you do the try catch finally loops and so that stuff. So it's a little bit different, but it's pretty cool stuff. So for example, here you also get more return values. So the error handling is pretty cool in Go. Here is your message which you get returned. And here is the optional error handling which you then process afterwards. And here you see that's basically my implementation. So Kafka or Go is very concise and simple and intuitive. So of course this is not a enterprise ready implementation. So I have to implement more features here, like for error handling and so on maybe. But this really works already to send messages from my Flogo process and send it to the Kafka broker. So that's basically the implementation. And you also, if you wanna, you have to configure some metadata, but this is also some very simple JSON stuff where you simply configure again your structure and your parameters. And here you can again use the template, so it's you don't even have to understand it, you just do it for your project like it was in your template. And this is the implementation of the Kafka connector. Then you also have to configure the UI packages. This is so that you can also use it in the web UI if you want. That's again also pretty simple, just a few things you have to change here. So this was the Kafka implementation, and now of course also we wanna implement the test. And here I did the same. I replaced the APIs from Twilio with the Kafka APIs. And the basic template and structure is the same. I simply changed my things here so that I, for example, want to set now my input, my test topic, and my test message content. And then I execute this. Of course, this again can also be much more sophisticated to do more unit tests and assertions and so on. But this is fine for the first moment. And with that now, we are really done with our implementation of our first very early version of a Kafka connector or Flogo activity. And so let's try this out. For that, we go back to the terminal. And in the terminal, you simply have to go to your project, to the runtime. And here we have our Go code. And in Go, it's very easy. You have here the test, and you type Go test. And then it runs and executes the unit test against your code. And here in this case, we see it passed, so there was no error. That's good. And we also see that it worked here because we received our message here. So remember, my test in this case sends exactly this message here. And as it is successfully, it sends the message to the broker. And therefore, not only the unit test works, but you can also see that my other two consumers of Kafka are getting this message. Right, so let's start it again. Take a look at another one of the windows. I test it again, and here you see that my message is coming to the other consumers. So here now you see really that I'm executing the Flogo connector, and the Flogo activity sends messages to my to my Kafka broker. So that looks pretty good. And now actually we are done implementing our Kafka activity. Now I want to also add it to the web UI. This again is optional, you don't have to use the web UI, but I really love it. And so I have already running my web IDE. The web IDE is in the end a Docker container, as you can see here. So it's a Docker container with some implementation of the web IDE and some other things. You do not have to care much about it. I just started this container here. So, and then I can access the web IDE. So here we see, this is the web IDE. And as I said, I will not do much introduction here or show you advanced features of the web IDE. You can go to my other YouTube videos or to my blog to see more features. Here it's really about just creating a new flow, and I type in Kafka flow and open it. And the only thing I want to do here is I want to start a new process via timer. And now we come to the interesting part. Here we see our activities which are available by default. And here you can easily also install a new activity. And my activity is not in here yet because I did not contribute it to the GitHub project of our Flogo GitHub folder yet. I will do that after this recording, so in the future we'll also see it here probably. But you can also install your custom activities here, and also, for example, if you do not want to contribute it to the open source community but only use it for yourself. And therefore I install it here from the activity. Let me just copy my URL. And here you see, this is my GitHub URL. So this is the way how it connects to it. And here is my GitHub project, which you see. This is my GitHub project with the Kafka connector. This includes exactly the source code which I showed you before. And now we can go to the web UI here and add it and install it. One click here, and a few seconds later we should see a green message pop up, which then installs it here. You see it here, activity installed. And now here you see my activity. The text and so on, that is how I configured it in the JSON files. And now it is there. And though we can use it here on the right side, you see send message to Kafka. And therefore I add the plus here and send message to Kafka. And here I can configure now my topic and my message. This is what I have configured in my activity here. That's basically going through all the code, through the constants, and then also through the JSON files you see here. And in the next step, of course, one thing I have to do also, I have also to create parameters for my URL so that I do not have to hard code it here. But for now, that's pretty fine, it works. And here now I can add a topic. In this case, I use my messages. You see here, my messages is the one which is used here by all my brokers and by my consumers and producers. And therefore, let me close this one. And therefore, I use the same topic here. And I also use my message hello from web UI, from Flogo web UI. And then I save this. And then I simply click on run from trigger. And what's happening here, it's compiling the code. And you see also in Go how fast that was. And it executes the message. As this is blue, it's already successful. And therefore, let's check this here. And here it's great. You see my messages coming from the web UI. And it's coming from Flogo. And it is sent to my Flogo independent Kafka consumer here. So here now you really see that my activity works. Let's do a second one. And here you again want to see another great feature of Flogo Web IDE, the step back debugger. So you don't have to recompile and you don't have to go back to the timer. So you can really start from here, from an activity. This is not so interesting if you have just two activities, but in a bigger process and in Internet of Things scenarios, you have often many activities and complex flows. You can start in the middle of the flow, and I can say run from tile, and then it executes only this part here. And so we should also see this message here, and here we are. That's great. And so we also saw that this is working. So that's basically the development of my Kafka activity. The next step would also be, of course, to develop a Kafka trigger. So it would work exactly the same way, but then I also could use another trigger here instead of timer or MQTT. I could then use also MQTT to start new Flogo processes. And in this way, you can simply create other activities and triggers and so on and contribute that. And therefore, again, it would be great if you contribute your code. You can simply do a pull request to one of our projects here, or you can simply contact us via our TIBCO community or even via email if you want to share something. And we are ready to help with that then. That is my demo, so I hope that was helpful if you want to build your own ones. Let's summarize the key takeaways. Building custom Flogo connectors for both triggers and activities is very easy, fast and lightweight. As you have seen, that's the benefit of the Go programming language. And it really can be done without much experience in Go. So it's pretty easy for getting started in a few hours if you have some experience with other programming languages. It's best done, I think, by using templates from other connectors, because then you don't have to think too much about the concepts of Flogo in the beginning, but really just build your own connectors. And then you learn more and more about the details of Flogo concepts while implementing this. And finally, of course, again, we want to encourage you that you contribute to the community. If you have any questions about that or feedback or anything else, you can always contact me via email, Twitter, YouTube or so. But we would also be happy if you have Flogo specific questions, if you directly post it to the Flogo community. If you ask your questions there, then more people than just me can read it and also respond and discuss with you. And with that, thanks for watching and happy coding with Flogo.